This is the slide overview for unit for the Sunkit unit in BA101Z and can be used in other applications as well. This is going over teamwork and communication as an introduction to business. So as you're looking at things, I tried as I was working on the syllabus to switch the word group to the word team. And the reason I did that is because there's actually a distinct difference between the two. While a group has two or more people that have some sort of common interest or situation, in this case being in the same class, there are members that identify with one another due to that sort of trait. And what I want you to be doing is thinking in terms of a team, looking at the different skills and who can complete what task and how you guys can benefit each other working on common projects with the goal of getting a good grade in the course, right? And then combining your skills together. And as you write your team contracts, I would like you to focus on who's going to do what in a fair manner, but in a manner that really highlights what are people good at, who's really good at hitting deadlines, who's really good at making sure that everybody gets their section of the assignment done, who's really good with technology, who's really good with editing and grammar checking and spell checking, who's really good with research, who's really good with citations, and focus on your strengths to have the best team you possibly can. Okay, so teams with these groups of individuals that have skills that help one another um, are used to achieve some sort of goal. In this case, you're trying to get a good grade in the class, but when we transfer it into terms of a company, whether you're the owner or whether you're an employee within the company, we're still looking at achieving some sort of objects and that objective, and that's why we're having you guys work in teams, because it's something that you will likely have to do in some fashion, whether it is even if you own an individual company and you're the only person working in that company, you're still going to have a team. You're going to have an accountant, you're going to have an attorney, you're going to have someone who is working with your vendors, you're going to have people that are working on your equipment, you're going to have other people that have other skills than you that work together to create efficiency within the operation of what you're doing, regardless of whether or not you guys are all being paid by the same person. And if you're an individual who says, no, I have to do it all by myself, you're not utilizing your resources in the best fashion you could, because why do it by yourself if someone else could do it faster and more efficiently so you can do what you're good at, right? Which is the whole point of this and how we work together in business to create an efficient moving system. So we have a lot of different types of teams. Manager-led teams are going to be somebody who says, hey, I've got this group of people that all work under me, versus say a self-managed team are going to be people who are going to work as a group, but there's usually all equals. Cross-function, you're going to work across department or you're going to work with outside people. Virtual, which is what you're doing in this case, because we're in an asynchronous course, you're going to work together across likely just the state of Oregon. When I was in graduate school, I actually had to work across 3 different time zones. So that made it a little more difficult with my teams, because we were in an asynchronous program, but we were across the entire country. So that makes a huge difference in, okay, whose time zone are we working in? What making sure everybody remembers that we're working in a different time zone, things like that. And then lastly, we've got projects where maybe we're only working together for a specific thing or a specific time. versus working together always. And what you'll see is some of the people that are in your class today will continue to be in business classes, and you're either going to say, hey, that person and I weren't a really good fit, and I probably shouldn't be partnered with them again, or that person and I did really, really well together, and I want to be partnered with them again in the future. And you can make those decisions for the next project being the next course you guys are in together, right? So this is going into just a little more detail on the types of teams. So in the manager-led team, the very first one we talked about, the team is required to do some sort of task, but someone generally outside a manager, leader, somebody like that is going to perform the functions. So think of this in terms of, say, a nursing staff getting ready for a surgery. You've got somebody who's going to prep the room, somebody who's going to prep the tools, somebody who's going to prep the patient. But the person who's actually doing the work is the surgeon, right? The nurses will be there to help assist, but the surgeon is doing the main chunk of that. So this might, as you see it in a business situation, be a group of people putting together a presentation, and then the boss, the manager, is the one actually presenting the information. There can be tension within this group depending on the degree of control within the team. But we still want to see the creativity and individuality, and a good manager slash leader, because I prefer the word leader, is someone who's going to see your strengths and push you to utilize them and not hamper them. Self-managed teams are teams that are going to work and be accountable to one another, which is kind of where you guys are. I'm not going to get into the middle of y'all's teams unless I am being told of a problem and I need to utilize your team contracts to help make a final decision as a manager. But really, I want you guys to think of yourself as self-managed teams. So you guys are going to work together to decide how the thing is going to come together and what you're going to do. And you're going to be responsible for your own scheduling and stuff and selecting your team members. Hopefully you guys have done that. If you haven't yet, I will do it within a couple of days and assign you a team. But I do definitely prefer when you do it yourself. Cross-function teams, this is an example where we're looking at headquarters, research and development, and then within the factory, we're looking at production and engineering, quality control, production, and maintenance. And there's one person at least from every single one of those departments that are working on a group. And I gave you a previous example of you being a business owner and then having a group of team members that are outside your organization that helps your organization run smoothly. The idea here is that everybody has a different functional expertise and that we come from different areas of an organization or different areas of business, and that we're all going to work together and self-direct to focus and complete whatever task needs to be completed. Okay, virtual teams. This is what we're doing with this particular class. And I don't really feel like I need to do a lot of explaining on this. You guys are going to meet via Zoom, meet via Google Chats, text, maybe do phone calls. One of your first assignments is talking about the basic functions of business as a group in a video. You guys do not need to be in person. I can't require you to be in person, but if you do a video of yourself and then send it over Facebook Messenger to the person who knows how to collaborate all those videos together, now you've each done your little part. The person who knows how to get them all together has done that part, and then that person is probably going to be the one that turns it in. But it has us utilize our technology for the good of the group and the project. The project teams, like I said, these are really about a very specific goal, and they're generally a short time that these people are working as a group on a specific project that is happening. So team development, when we're forming the teams, we go through some stages. First, you guys are putting your names together on a spreadsheet, right? And then the words here are meant to be easy to remember: forming, storming, norming, performing, adjourning. So looking at each of these stages, we're going to group together. We're going to focus on figuring out what the tasks are, and who's going to do them. And then we're going to figure out what the purpose is, right? Storming is, these are clarifying our goals. So a good thing to ask in your guys' team contract is what everybody's trying to get out of this class. If somebody's trying to get an A and somebody else just trying to get a C, you guys might not be the best team for each other, because the A person is never going to think that the C person is doing as much as they want them to be doing. And the C person might go, you know what? I just need to pass this class. I don't have time to get an A in this class. I'm fine getting a C. And therefore they're going to be stressed because the A person is pushing on them. So figure out how you guys can work together and have some sort of common goal. Okay. Norming, this is where we're focusing on developing the values and how you guys are going to work as a team. We're going to address any issues that are happening in this first week and figure out how you guys are going to communicate. I am only allowed to provide you with your school emails to one another. Beyond that, this is what you guys are comfortable with as far as what kind of information you're giving out to your classmates. And then the norms are, they become a way of just creating a thing to do. I don't want to say the word agenda because that's not really it, but if you make the choices now in week 1, excuse me, in week 2, then in future weeks, it's not a choice of who's doing what. You guys have already done that. It's just making it a lot easier so you can just get to the work. Okay. Performing, this is when you're actually doing the work together. And because you've done stages 1 through 3, this stage becomes less time consuming because you guys already know what it is you're wanting to do. And then adjourning, this is week 10, week 11, when you guys are writing your peer reviews and your self reviews and deciding how you guys did as a team and closing out this grouping of people. Okay, so success. So a successful team versus an unsuccessful team really comes down to dynamics, communication, similar goals, things like that. Some normal things we see in successful teams is that we trust one another. We trust that if we give a person the job of citing sources, the person's going to do that, right? We all have a common goal. So you guys have all put your goal on the table and everybody knows what everybody else's goal is. We have team roles and responsibilities, which is why we ask you to make contracts, because then you guys have collaborated on who is doing what. You guys communicate well and you work well as a group. Granted, we will not always get the perfect person or persons to work with as a group, but try to find some sort of common ground as you're working with this person to make the next 8, 9, 10 weeks more bearable. Communication. I've talked about this, and you will see this when you see me in other classes. Communication is the most important thing. One of the things that kills marriages the most often is the lack of communication. Now, granted, it ends up being about kids, about money, about stressors. Those are the 3 kind of subtopics. But the problem comes back down to we're not communicating about those things. So if we can't do it in our own household, in our own partnership with our significant other or others, it's going to be even harder to do it in business settings. So communication is going to help us with products and services and organizations as we're promoting them out to the customer, but also it's going to help us with Customer behavior. Customers will mirror what we do. If we start getting flustered and start yelling at that customer when the customer is yelling at us, that customer is going to yell back more. But if we're calm and collected, most customers are going to start mirroring that. Advertising, the way we advertise is directly related to the person we're attempting to advertise to. We're communicating in a way with them that they expect to be communicated with. Public relations, how are we communicating with the public? How are we managing our events? You're going to see a very different type of event at Google than you are at Wells Fargo, for example, because we have a different culture. Corporate communication, how we communicate with our peers, our uppers, our team members below us makes a big difference in the way they're going to communicate back with us. And that is really representative of, again, the culture within the business you're working in. Research and measurement. So how are we measuring success? That should be communicated so a person knows what the expectations are. And then reputation within the management. If the management has a reputation for being shady, people are just going to assume all of the management is shady, right? So business communication is not only to our customers, to our vendors, but also to each other. If we can't communicate with each other, the business is going to fall apart. So we really need to work with building trust, building satisfaction with jobs and with team members, our team members, to work as a group with communication. You don't have to tell everybody everything, and you're going to find groups of people that like to overshare or feel that they need to overshare to kind of justify what's happening in their situation. Other people will give you nothing, and you know that there's something wrong, and they just won't tell you. And we need to kind of step the person who's not giving nothing up a little bit and just say, hey, you know what? It's been a real crappy day, and I'm just not going to be all there. And being able to say that and accept that that's what that person said and be completely okay with it is important within the dynamic of who you're working with. Just as being able to say, you know what, I really don't need all your information, but I appreciate that you're willing to share it with me so I know how things are impacting you in your life, right? But figuring out what the best form of communication is for whatever dynamic we're working in, okay? So effective communication, thoughtful, clear, specific, brief, and timely. Some things take more than just a sentence or two. Some things need to be said right away. Other things can wait. Other things you can say, you know what, I'm having a really bad day. And 3 weeks down the line, you can say, this is more specifically what was happening and why I was acting this way. If you can be specific, please do that. Try to be thoughtful in the manner of not hurting another person's feelings in the process, but also as the receiver of the communication, be thoughtful about what that person is sharing with you. It may be that they don't want to tell you what they're telling you, but they need to because that's the situation that's existing in their life and it affects you. So for you to say, hey, thanks for sharing that with me. I know it was really hard to share that with me. Something like that to be able to be a good communicator on the receiving end as well is important too. So barriers to effective communication, jargon, even us as instructors have been taught to not say things like, unless we're teaching you jargon. Like one of the classes I teach is survey of accounting. If I said you guys need to follow GAPS rules when we're talking about accounting, you guys probably don't know what I'm talking about. But I need the people in survey of accounting to know that GAPS means generally accepted accounting principles, right? So it's a use of jargon that I'm going to say I need very specifically these things from you because you guys don't know that jargon yet. If English is not your first language, English jargon, English colloquialisms get really weird, right? So that doesn't help. Withholding information. You don't have to tell everybody everything, but just not saying anything to anybody, or saying anything to your teammates until the 11th hour and your teammates are going, well, I guess I got to finish this project without this person, when really you had it done the whole time. You just needed to get home to push send, right? Where you could say, hey, I'm going to be 10 minutes. Don't worry. I got this. Like, there's a difference there between you thinking it in your brain where you know you've got it, but you haven't communicated that yet with the people that need it communicated with. Hierarchy can reduce the flow of communication. So this is you guys tiering yourselves within your group. You guys should all be on an equal playing field here. Even if I have someone who's a grandmother and somebody who is a high school student and somebody who has had a corporate job and somebody who has never had a job. Like, it doesn't matter where you guys are coming from. You're all coming as new people into this particular course. So remember to try and put yourself all on an even flow of communication, and no hierarchies, including me. Like, I am the instructor, but I've never taught this course before. So while I have lots of business background, please don't feel intimidated or the lack of need to communicate with me if you guys see something that's weird, because I'm learning this too. I'm learning how this particular course works. And that hierarchy and other things can then create a lack of trust. So to get trust, be trustworthy. Physical barriers. I'm assuming that all of you have access to internet, a computer, and the ability to use some sort of technology because you are in an asynchronous course. If you are not, I need you to communicate that with both me and your partners so we can work as a group to make sure that you guys have access to those resources that you need. Biases. These are both implicit biases and known biases. Implicit biases are things that we don't realize that we have a bias about, but we do. We've been trained as we were growing up or as we've lived life to kind of have these biases. One that comes to mind to me is that older people aren't as good as technology, but my grandfather was a college professor in computer science. And so you have the biasy and then something that breaks the biasy. And the biasy may be true. Sometimes we're not good at technology, right? There are things in social media I don't know because I'm closer to 40 than I am to 20. It just happens. But think about where your biases are coming from and communicate in a way that's respectful, to verify that you trust the person with what's going on, right? Are you good with taking a video of yourself? Are you okay with sending me this video? Like, asking these open-ended questions will help build the trust for both of the people and or multiple partners, as well as help give a space to communicate if there is something that you need help with. Filtering and language and cultural differences, these are kind of grouped together in my brain because we need to look at, okay, what does this mean for this culture, this language versus something else that's happening. The goal here is for you guys to be comfortable with working in groups, not for you guys to produce professional level information at all times. You're learning. This is very often one of the very first college classes that someone is taking. So I want you guys to learn. You guys are more than welcome to send me emails of stuff before you turn it in and go, hey, is this good enough? I'm fine with that, right? And I'll give you feedback. So working through these barriers so you can effectively communicate. So communication channels. So communication involves a sender, a message, and a receiver that creates a channel. So we have different types of channels. So face-to-face meetings, in-person oral presentations. We don't get that option in this particular class, but I'm still talking to you with my camera on, so you can see my facial features. You can see me waving my hands around, right? Um, Better ones, or excuse me, not as good. So they're calling these the richest channels being face to face versus rich channels being online meetings and video conferences. It's because you can see body language. Okay. Lean channels, teleconferencing, phone calls, voice messages, and videos like FaceTime. I would put videos like FaceTime up in the online meeting slash video conference because you can still see facial expressions of someone. But these are going to be better than trying to say something in a blog or just text. A lot of times we miss context when it comes to text, um, or in an email or a news flyer. It's the reason that I have you guys work specifically in Google Drive because I can go in and see exactly who wrote what. So if I have a student come to me, and I've had this happen in other classes, they come to me and they say, "Hey, my name's not on any of the reports that have been turned in by my teammates." And I go, "Did you do any work?" And they say, "Yeah, of course I did." I can go back and I can see who wrote what. Sometimes I've gone in there and they've written most of it and their teammate turned it in but didn't put their name on it, and therefore they didn't get any credit for it. But other times I've gone in there and they said, "Of course I did something." And I go in there and I can see exactly who did what. And they've never even written anything on that document. That tells me that they're lying to me and they're attempting to get credit for their teammates' work. So utilizing strategies, it's what we call the leanest channel, but utilizing strategies to kind of CYA or cover your butt um, helps again in creating that honesty. One of the things my grandfather always used to say is locks will keep an honest man honest. And again, colloquialisms, but the point to that kind of thought process is that an honest person is going to be honest regardless. Someone who's being manipulative is going to be manipulative regardless of what the context of the situation is. So being able to meet on a video call, say you guys all meet on Zoom together, and then somebody sends an email or puts a note in Google Drive that says, "This is what we talked about." Now it's written that we have a paper trail of what was spoken about, who's doing what. It's the same reason I have you guys write the contracts. It's helping create very clear communication and expectations. Um, Secondary channels, web-based, emails, letters, presentations, telephone conference calls, message boards, and face-to-face meetings. The idea behind these is really there are layers to all of our communication and how we communicate. And some places are going to be much more effective than other places in what we're working in. Okay. So how to use the channels. When you're deciding, you need to think about a couple of things. Your audience. So often I'm going to tell you how I want you to communicate when you're working as a team, not as a team, like you guys choose how you're communicating as a team, but how you're going to communicate to me, your audience. Okay. Or to your classmates, your audience. Secondarily to that, how long is it going to take to convey the information? How complex is this message? Do we need a permanent record? I appreciate the permanent record here, or what I call the paper trail. And this reminds people and holds people accountable. This is what we agreed to. Otherwise, it's a he said, she said. So while I like meeting face to face with people or meeting over Zoom, if you guys meet me over Zoom and I have given you a set of instructions or expectations, I'm going to then send you an email that says, "This is what we talked about." And I do that with my clients too, because then we have a confirmation of the things that we talked about, and I'm on the same page as you, and vice versa. The degree to which information is confidential. This really is why your student email becomes a thing, is because I'm supposed to communicate with you, A, in a professional manner, and B, within a confidential system. I don't know who has access to your personal email. No one should, but it happens. And so I'm not supposed to be communicating with you about your grades and stuff like that without first having some sort of confidentiality, which is utilizing a secure email, which is your student email. And then what's the cost of communication? Something that you don't have to think about in this class, but you'll have to think about it more as you go into various business situations. The cost of a meeting with a regional group of people is very different than the cost of a conference call, right? So figuring out, okay, is the cost worth having everybody come in person, or can we do this over a Zoom or something like that? So thinking about those kind of things. Communication flows. So communication can occur between different kinds of senders and receivers. This is both inside and outside of the company. When I was talking about you as the receiver of the communication, that is part of it. Sometimes we have to talk to our boss. We're going to go up, which is in the case of this class is me, right? Sometimes we have to talk downward. We have to talk to the people that are below us in the hierarchy. That might be one of our employees. That might be someone else's employee. That might be your child. Horizontally, that's people on the same level as you. Diagonally, that's why I said someone else's employee. Many times when I was in corporate America, I had to talk to other people's employees. Then I would have to go talk to other people and say, hey, this is what was going on with your employee, right? So it might be you talking across to somebody else's boss. It might be talking to somebody else's employee, but it's not a straight across or straight up and down, right? Internally and externally, that's me talking to someone within my business versus someone on the outside of my business, and then talking through different networks, both informal and formal. I'm going to talk differently in a network of students who have never been exposed to this than I am going to talk to a BNI group, business network international is what BNI stands for. But I'm going to talk to them very, very differently than I'm going to talk to somebody who I'm teaching the stuff to, right? And I try to always keep things in a informal context in that I don't want someone to feel intimidated if I'm using big jargon, especially because I work in finance a lot. And that can intimidate those of us who haven't been in finance a lot, or those of us that are learning about finance. I want to be personable with you guys. I want you to feel like you can reach out to me and say, hey, what does this mean? What are you talking about? Without being crass, right? We don't have to cuss. I will probably do it occasionally. I try not to, but it happens. But there's a difference between being informal like I am now, being formal with big, huge jargon and a lot of extra information, and then being so informal that I'm cussing and creating a different environment within my conversation. Okay, so communication flow, this is kind of showing you the different types of communication. Formal and informal, again, this is how are we talking? Who are we talking to? What is the context of the information that we're conveying? Formal communication can also be documented. So this might be sending an email or a memo. One way, this might be somebody responding to you, but generally not initiated by someone in a higher level to a lower level, and then occurs inside some sort of established channel. Informal is going to be, hey, we're sitting in the break room together. We're going to have a conversation back and forth. We see each other in the grocery store, right? Between individuals of varying statuses and then outside of some sort of established channel. I have had informal conversations become formal. I talked to somebody at school and we were just chatting. This was last Friday. We were just chatting, and then she sent me an email, and now we have a meeting together in a now formal setting, right? Electronic communication. Of course, we have risks to that: viruses, phishing, Trojan horses, things like that. So this is really about, where are we gathering our information? Are we getting them from reliable sources? Are we vetting the people we're talking to make sure that they're not sending a phishing scam or something like that? Um, and then ethical issues, we can look at things like employer-employee rights within an email, use of technology for screening applicants within HR. So I have had and seen situations where HR booted somebody out because they were using AI, and AI didn't see very specific keywords, and they removed qualified applicants simply because of that. So then you have to do something where you're then calling the person who's actually looking at this and going, "Hey, I applied. Please look for me so I don't get kicked out by the computer system," which has happened to me before, and happened to other people I know. And then other issues with that is, are we collecting data of another person they don't want collected, right? So, practice question. Most common complaint when people work in teams is that some people do more work than others. What ideas, structures, and norms are discussed in this module that address those concerns? So, pause me, write down your answers. And then I'm going to read what I've got in here on my notes, which is accountability, making sure that we're in a self-managed team. But in addition to that, communication should be in there in your answer. And then quick review. These are all different things that I spoke about within the slides that should help you as you're working through your study plan. So that is the end of teamwork and communication. I'll get this uploaded so you have access to it. And then remember, ask any questions that you have that I haven't already answered for you, and we will work to find a solution.